10,000 doesn't go back to the 1900s, 1800s, but we were formed in 1989 in response to the HIV crisis in the blood supply. People with hemophilia depend heavily on blood products called clotting factor that are made from blood, and we were told in the early stages, oh, don't worry, if one HIV positive person donates blood and plasma into a pool, it'll dilute it. Well, it didn't. It made every product that came out of that pool, and I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of units,
Wow.
toxic HIV positive material. So we have a very strong history and very angry history. Lost a lot of children. We have lost 8,000 people so far. There's another 2,000 that are ill. Those who didn't go from AIDS are going slowly from hepatitis, which is not much fun either, including children. But we're very clear that since those days, a lot has been done to clean up the blood supply. Screening is better, handling and testing is better. Testing is much, much better now that we have the nucleic acid test that can find parts per billion in the blood supply. The problem is in management. If you have a huge number of units being tested after a blood drive, and your testing machine puts the HIV positive ones here and the HIV negative ones over here, the experience of the FDA is that at the Red Cross, some of those HIV positive units get shipped, or as Sally has already pointed out, an even greater number that were not completely tested right. They were suspect, they came from a person, although the unit is negative, the person contacts the drive afterwards and says, I once tested positive for HIV. So that unit needs to be found and disposed of. And that's not always happening. That's the kind of crimes that we find have been going on for all the 17 years that these consent decrees have been in place. What else does it take? Now, there's a general agreement by the FDA that, and the Red Cross and other providers, that the blood supply of the U.S. is safer than it's ever been. And that's true. We subscribe to that. We point out that if you get a 60 on a test, it may be the highest you ever got, but it's still not closing on perfection. And when you get to things like airline maintenance and the U.S. blood supply, you want 99.99. And we're not there. I wish we were. We are very pleased to join today's observance of the fact that the workers in Red Cross centers have come forward and said the conditions are so oppressive, we know they are causing danger to the blood. You've heard of some examples already of some of those. The extended hours, 14-hour days regularly, being sent on a blood supply, on a blood drive without a nurse in case something happens. Truck drivers being turned into blood drawers, phlebotomists. These are practices that are not designed to increase the safety of the blood supply. They're for other purposes. The consent decree, 17 years long, means that the Red Cross, which collects 40% of the blood every year in the country, is under the watchful eye of the courts. And still this persists. The letter that the speaker mentioned from last October was 21 pages long. I'm sorry, 32. There was another one that was 21. These are lists, compilations of violations that go to the vendor, if you will, in this case the Red Cross, and are designed to develop a conclusion that, this must be stopped. And in these cases of these letters, each violation is paired with a fine that goes into the total that is levied. And sometimes those fines are high, sometimes they're not. They're up to $21 million now since 1993, or in 2003 when they began this. And some would say that if the fines in that letter were, if the amount of fine indicated by the infractions in that letter were fully levied against the Red Cross, this letter wouldn't trigger a $4.5 million fine, which is what's expected, but rather a $39 million fine, which is well above the 21 to date in 10 years. So we're hopeful. It seems like the only club available is financial. And there's an image of management sort of, pay another fine. That meanwhile, you have over 100 blood products from donors who should have been deferred for travel to malaria areas. Hundreds of blood products the Red Cross determined to be suspect or failed to control in a timely manner, resulting in distribution, sale, and transfusion into patients. I think that's what we really have to understand. That when there's problems, people get these contaminated units. And hundreds of products from people who were not asked proper screening questions, as I indicated before. Now these letters have come out regularly from the Red Cross during this period. And the link is in your press kit for taking a look at this one. At the Committee of 10,000, which we abbreviate COTT, every one of our monthly newsletters contains about 4 or 5 pages from the FDA's weekly enforcement reports on violations in the blood area. And I can't tell you how depressing it is to read them and just see American Red Cross, American Red Cross, American Red Cross, American Red Cross. There are others in here, but there's a lot of Red Cross. And it needs to be cleaned up. Our board is made up of people who were there in the 80s who lost children. And they find it unconscionable that this situation is allowed to persist. So we are very grateful that the Workers' Committee has been able to connect us with those who are saying the blood's in danger because we depend on it so heavily. And we're very angry to see that something is done.